Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to shoot a really quick video and go over a couple things in regards to everyday carry pocket knives, specifically clip knives, knives that you would traditionally think is a pocket knife. In today's sense of the terms, anyway, a knife that clips on the outside of your pocket, not really going to go over like Northwoods knives or GEC, Swiss Army knives. That's going to be a different video for what I call deep carry pocket knives, like you carry them deep in your pocket. This is just going to be what you normally think about when you think about a pocket knife. These are just going to be a few considerations in what I think you should look into for determining what is the best pocket knife for you. These are my choices for best pocket knife of 2020. This is my first what I would consider higher end EDC knife that I got. Now, this is a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. This one does have the lynch clip on it. It does not come like that. This is just a very basic model in CPM S30V, which is a very, very good steel, and that'll be a theme throughout this video. When you buy these nicer, quote-unquote, knives, they come with a little bit nicer steel. I used to be a steel snob, and I may make a video just talking about the differences between different steel types and considerations to be made about them. Personally, as long as you get something better than 8CR13, then you're probably fine. OS 8's okay, but those are like a budget steel. So if you're getting 154 cm and up, anything from that to like S90, something like that, it's not too terribly important. I used to, like I said, get caught up on it, and it's not a big deal really for the average person. So that was what I used to carry. That was my first knife, and that served me well for a few years. Through watching different YouTube videos and this and that, I became acquainted with the Benchmade 940. Now this one, like you can tell, has been used a little bit. This is just your plain version. And now that's another thing. I don't like serrated blades, so I'm not going to carry one. Once again, you can see S30V. And this is in just your satin blade finish. Super nice knife. These used to come a lot with a more obtruse edge. So like a fatter edge instead of a thinner one. The Spydercos come from the factory, in my opinion, with a better edge. However, I do knife sharpening, and you don't have to have a $400 or $500 system. You can sharpen any of these knives with a strop and sandpaper. That's how I sharpen the majority of my knives, since the majority of my knives that I use are actually bushcraft knives, Scandinavian ground knives. But it works really, really well for these, as just as well. So that knife, I carried a 940, not that 940. That's a newer one. I carried a Benchmade 940 probably, I'd say, religiously for the last, last 6 years of my life. Now, like I say, religiously, I would try out other knives, but I always came back to the 940 just because to me it was the best option. It doesn't take up a lot of room in your pocket. Like how the Spydercos have the Spidey hole, it will take up a lot of room in your pocket. The 940, you can just put it in your pocket and it really disappears, especially if you have one of the deeper carry clips, which I'll show you. See this one right here? Is this your standard pocket clip? I'll show you a deep carry one in a minute. Here is another 940. This one I carry, I guess, a little bit more just because I like the black blade, but also an S30V. And here is one of those deep carry pocket clips. As you can tell, it rides much, much deeper in your pocket. This knife with that clip really just disappears. You can't really, even half the time I forget I'm even carrying it. Now that leads me where I got kind of complacent with these knives. There's nothing wrong with these. All of these knives I show you, if one of them just speaks to you, you can buy it and it's going to serve you just fine. You may not even realize what you're missing unless you actually do what I do and go out and spend a bunch of money on knives, and then you can nitpick between the two. But if you just buy one of these and never try another one, you really won't know what you're missing. This knife came out, which I carried an older model of this, and this is a Spyderco Delica. Now this is the one I was speaking about that was more affordable. These are less than $70, and you're getting it's Japanese made, but it's still a Spyderco VG10 steel, which is actually pretty decent for an everyday carry steel. And you can see there, blade, if I line these cutting edges up, blade length right there, not as much as the other options. You're actually getting a little bit more handle length, fantastic knife. This is actually when I go and I'm take the risk of losing a knife. So if I'm doing Christmas tree work or something like that, I'll actually carry a Delica. I prefer this blade shape just because I like the look of it, for one, and also that flat edge is just really, really nice to work with. But they have them in more of a traditional Spyderco blade shape. But this knife, I went and started carrying a Delica because I lost a 940. So I lost the 940 and it pissed me off, so I was like, I'm going to quit carrying expensive knives. So I started carrying these cheaper Delica knives, and they're actually really, really good for the money. Well, when the Paramilitary 3 came out, now this one is in a different steel. You can see that. Still a really, really good steel. More along the same size lines. Now, I mean, if you lay these on top of each other, you know, it looks bigger because of the camera angle. But there's a Paramilitary 2 compared to the 3. So, you know, not a little bit of a size difference. But this one having the lightweight handle has been a dream to carry in the pocket. So I got that knife and I was like, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it stops. I was mistaken because Benchmade came out with their bug out line. Now I've had a blue bug out and the green, like they call it, Ranger color bug out, and they're great knives. I did go buy the Bailout, which this is that I do have a bug out. It's just in a hiking backpack for one reason I'll explain later. This knife is fantastic. It has a lot of blade length, super thin, but you can kind of pinch the handle, so it's not nearly as sturdy as any of these. I just like the blade shape and the length of this one. You can kind of compare it to a 940 right there. But this is just, for this video, going to stand in for the Bailout and the bug out because my gripe with one remains the same for both. The handle is pretty weak. If you're actually using these knives pretty hard, you can actually feel them flex in your hand, which is not a big deal. If your EDC is going to just mainly be opening packages, cutting up food, honestly, one of these Benchmade Bailouts or bug outs would be fantastic. And that's why I have it in one of my hiking bags, is because I use it primarily just for food prep. I open Mountain House meals with it. I cut up fruit with it. No hard, woods work with it or anything like that. It's just a lightweight pocket knife to have in case you need to flip it open and open something really, really quick. Moving into 2020, these were the blades that I was carrying, and these, like I said, would serve anybody well. I'm just being nitpicky. So moving into 2020, a buddy of mine, actually, I was aware of them, but he kind of introduced me into another realm of knives, into a different realm of pocket knives, and that would be automatic knives. Now, this is a MICROTECH. This is a really, really cool knife. This is an ULTRATECH. This is the full-size version of it. And like I said, it's an automatic knife. A little more tactical than I like. But, I mean, they're a whole lot of fun. They're very lightweight, very, pretty thin for what you're getting. And they're very, very high quality. I was kind of carrying this to the range with me. Just to have a little bit more of a tactical knife. Now, depending on your state, these are legal or they may be illegal to carry. I think they're legal to own in every state. Don't quote me on that, but the legality comes down to carrying them. Now, my current situation is I reside technically in 2 states. I have a state back home that I have a house in, and I have a state where I work for my job. The state where I work, this knife is legal to carry. The state that I grew up in, it is illegal to carry this knife. Now, would anyone ever bother you with it? I highly doubt it. I've never heard of it. Later this year, I purchased another MICROTECH. This is the LUDT, and this one is relatively new. I got this one not super long ago, and it's been a joy to carry. It's more of a traditional, the way it opens instead of out the front, and I mean, it's tactical, but it's to me a little bit less tactical and flashy than the ULTRATECH. So that one's kind of just, I carry it at work mainly. This one here is much more, the size you'd want from a pocket knife for me. I don't want anything too big. I don't want anything too small. These are actually kind of on the upper edge of size for me. But the you know, this one fits in there just fine for the what I've been using. Now that leads me to a Grail knife, a knife that I told myself I wouldn't buy, and I ended up buying 3 of them, selling them, trading them, back and forth, and that would be a Chris Reeves SEBENZA. This one is a large model, and this is the 21 with the Insingo blade, which is the blade shape I like. I've had a small one, and I've had a large one. I've had a small standard blade, and I've had a small Tanto. And I think I decided that this is probably the best combination for me, for what I like. Now, this knife is a pretty big knife. Line it up right there with a 940. It's longer in blade length, and it's longer in handle length. Now, that kind of becomes a problem when you wear work pants. So, dress slacks, or for me, they're work pants because I wear dress clothes 60% of the time to work. The other job I work, 40% of the time I wear more of like a tactical pant. But yeah, so this becomes a problem because it takes up a lot of room in your pocket, and it's kind of hefty. This is not nearly as comfortable to carry as some of these other options. So we'll go ahead and I'll rank them in 1, 2, 3 order of what I personally believe is the best EDC knife 2020, and then we'll talk about it. Top 3 knives, we're going to go in reverse order. So we're going to start with number 3. So if I were to go out today with money being no object and purchasing an everyday carry knife, this is what I would do. Coming in number 3, which may surprise some people, the SEBENZA. It's a fantastic blade. If they made something in between the size of the large 21 and the small, I think it would be fantastic. The small is just a little too small, and this is just a little too large for me personally. Great knife. I'm just not a huge fan of big pocket knives, and this kind of is pushing that limit for me a little bit. Now, coming in number 2 would be the MICROTECH LUDT. This knife, to me, is kind of the perfect size for a pocket knife. I do like the automatic opening, and like I said, it's a little less tactical than the out the front for me. And it's a great slicer. It's super well made. The action on it fires very quickly. And the edge from the factory is one of the sharpest edges I've ever received on a knife. But like I said, you have to make sure this is legal where you live. Now, number 1, if I went out today and bought a everyday carry knife, if I didn't have one, and what I would recommend to you, and what I have recommended to friends and family, would be the old Benchmade 940. There's something about this knife, and I've not yet to figure out if it's blessed or if it's a curse. I don't know what it is, but something about this knife just feels right in the hand. It opens quick. When you open it up, it feels like a lightsaber in your hand, with that blade length and how small and thin it is. It fits in your pocket and you don't even know it. And then when you open it up, all this blade length comes out. It's definitely my favorite. Like I said, if I had to sell every other knife I have and only keep one, it would be the Benchmade 940. So thank you all for watching. Drop below. I'd love to know what you guys everyday carry, what your favorite knife is, and what your Grail knife is.